How's it going, everybody? This is Dominic Minchella. I am the Kansas City Chiefs co-beat writer for On SI and the host of the Kansas City Chiefs Insider Podcast. Thank you guys so much for stopping in today as we continue to talk about the Kansas City Chiefs leading into their Week 2 game in a massive game a Super Bowl rematch between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Philadelphia Eagles. Now, we've talked about a little bit of everything leading up to the game, things that they need to improve on. The last two episodes, we've touched on a mixture of the wide receiving room and how they could have some trouble early, as well on if the Chiefs defense should be an area of concern going into the remainder of the season. If you missed both of those podcasts, excuse me, I advise you go check those out before coming back to watch this one, or listen to this one rather. Today, though, we're going to be talking about a big portion of the game for the Kansas City Chiefs going into their matchup against the Eagles that I feel like hasn't been really brought up yet. And that's going to be the offensive line. Recapping, the last time that this offensive line for Kansas City went up against the Philadelphia Eagles, it did not go Kansas City's way. It was a driving force this offseason to add pieces to the offensive line, primarily due to the way that they performed in the Super Bowl. Patrick Mahomes got brought down 6 times. They were breaking their way through. The Chiefs offense was vanished before it could even appear. It was a beat down by Philadelphia, but the end score wouldn't look that way. It was a beat down. And that in itself, the Chiefs aren't going into this game with a victory over the Chargers. They lost 27-21. So there's a little added pressure from those who are watching them on whether or not this team is still the team to root for in the AFC, or if this is truly the fall. And I think a lot of that indication will come whether or not the offensive line performs well against the Philadelphia Eagles. This is a big test for them. Not a whole lot of change has happened for the Eagles defense in terms of going after the quarterback. I think that it's very important that the Chiefs find a way to get their offensive line to have one of the most protective games of the young season. Even the whole season, that is. This could be if there was meant to be a game in the regular season that calls for the offensive line to have protection and protect Patrick Mahomes more, I would argue that it's this game. And from what we saw on the first week of the campaign against the Chargers, on offensive line last season compared to this season, on paper looks a little bit better. You added Josh Simmons as a rookie. You brought in Jalen Moore. But in reality, the offensive line crew didn't necessarily perform the best on their season opener. In fact, let me break down some of it, courtesy of Pro Football Focus. A big takeaway for a player is Jawaan Taylor. I've seen a lot of talk about Jawaan Taylor. I've even talked about him in my recap for the Chiefs losing that game against the Chargers. There was a lot of undisciplined areas of his game in the first week where it caused a lot of penalties. He got 4 penalties. It ranked as among tackles who played. He ranked 75th out of the 76 that played. Only one player at the tackle position caused more penalties than Jawaan Taylor did in week 1. And now it's not saying that Jawaan Taylor's not a great offensive lineman. He's making the big bucks for a reason. But it is a little concerning, though, when you look at it for the same reason. He's making a lot of money, and he's also making a lot of penalties. And a lot of those penalties kind of was a punch to the gut for Kansas City. It kind of took them out of some of their drives that they had on offense. But Jawaan Taylor definitely needs to step up. His overall grade in terms of Pro Football Focus is a mixture of 2 different things for offensive linemen, and that is in his pass blocking grade and his run blocking grade. So his overall grade was a 49.5, which as you would assume, is below average. In fact, he ranked for the first week of the season as the 64th best tackle out of the 76 that qualified. He did, though, have a strong pass blocking grade. That was his best portion thus far in his young season. He ranked 24th out of the 76th with a 71 overall grade in the pass blocking grade department. And run blocking grade, he had a 43.5, which placed him well below. A lot of penalties came on that, a lot of holdings, a lot of things around that. He also allowed one quarterback hit, two total pressures. There was a lot of things that, if this was the groundwork, I hope that the groundwork is only going up for Jawan Taylor. They're going to really need him. And if they don't have that at the right tackle position, you do have Jalen Moore, who you signed. He was only out there for a small portion of the game, but he is an option. He's making a lot of money, and the Kansas City Chiefs paid him the most this offseason to hopefully get him involved. When talking about the offensive line and going back to Josh Simmons, though, Josh Simmons is a different case compared to Jawan Taylor. Jawan Taylor has the experience in the National Football League, and we have to go into that season knowing that, or this season rather, knowing that Josh Simmons and the other rookies on the roster are likely to make their rookie mistakes, and they did so, and Simmons did so in his first appearance in the National Football League, earning an overall grade of 51. He ranked as the 60th best tackle out of the 76. He had a 61.4 pass blocking grade and a 59.1 run blocking grade. He had two penalties, and he played in 61 offensive snaps. I do think the upside is still there, especially because this was his position that he's playing is the exact area that the Philadelphia Eagles were able to capitalize on from the Chiefs' offensive line, that being the left side. I think it could be an area to watch if he's able to hold his own. If he's not able to hold his own while the Chiefs are still in it, I would argue that there's a call for a change there, even if it's just for a few snaps, depending on how the momentum shift goes. Creed Humphrey, in his first game, he was arguably one of the best offensive linemen as a starter for the Chiefs. And I mean, it just makes sense. The guy has just been a beast ever since donning a Chiefs uniform. He had an overall grade of a 68.5. It was a little bit above average. In last season, we know he's arguably the best center in the National Football League. He's a top 10 for sure, because he ranked 10th out of the 35 that qualified in that overall grade. He had 62.6 pass blocking grade, which ranked him 17th out of 35. And his run blocking grade was a 72, making him the 8th best center. He had no penalties, didn't allow a sack. He played in 61 offensive snaps. He was out there doing what he does best, and that is helping that Chiefs offensive line. Then you got Trey Smith. Trey Smith, a guy who's just got paid a lot, who are really hoping that the Chiefs are hoping that he's able to live up and continue his pay into his money. His first game, however, was not terrific, especially when it came to the run blocking. He had a 40.5 run blocking grade, which is not good at all. It's well below average, 66th ranked out of the 73rd guards that qualified. But he did make up with it in his pass blocking grade, where he ranked the third best guard in the National Football League from week one, earning an 85.4 grade. I think that that's very impressive, and that's the kind of things that you're going to have to see from Trey Smith. And those evening out comes to 58.7, which is a tad under average, hopefully going into the remainder of the season, especially against the Eagles. If there's a time to wake up, folks, for Trey Smith and the rest of the offensive line, it's got to be in this game. I'm not expecting a flawless performance. I don't think that way of any NFL team, whether they're made up of full franchise players, Hall of Famers, anything like that. This is a tough game to play, but I do expect them, and hopefully they expect this of themselves. They can't change what happened in the first week, but they can try their best and able to hold down that offensive line going into the second week and beyond. And then they also, the other starting of other starter on the offensive line for the Chiefs in the Week 1 matchup with Kingsley Suamataia, a guy who is in his second year, hopefully being able to kind of break through as a former second rounder to be a guy that they're hoping to see. And all in all, he was fine. His pass blocking grade is a little low. He had a 56.9, but his overall grade was a 59.9, close to a 60. That's going to put him right at average if he just had that extra oomph. If I think that if they're able to, not stop all the hits from coming in, the pressures allowing Patrick Mahomes more time to escape a problem or throw the football, something that they were not able to achieve against the Eagles initially. I do think that the starting offensive line, if they're able to fix those things, that should build confidence in the Kansas City Chiefs fan base, hoping that this problem that kind of took them out of the Super Bowl and history is eliminated before it even becomes an idea of a problem down the line. You got to utilize the depth that they did add at the offensive line position, whether that be in seeing improvements from Josh Simmons, seeing Creed Humphrey once again as a top 10 center or the number one center, Trey Smith living up to all of his potential with the new contract. I have full faith that they're able to do so. We just have to see how they're up there. I think that this game, should that they be strong, protecting Mahomes and allowing better protection while the running back kind of runs up the middle, I think that there's a way that the Kansas City Chiefs can leave Week 2 knocking off the reigning Super Bowl champions. That being said, though, ladies and gentlemen, as always, you should follow me over on X at Dom Minchella. I post and repost every single day. You're not going to want to miss any coverage of the Kansas City Chiefs as we are in the regular season. You can also follow us over at KC Chiefs on SI on X. Every single post of our stories will be there. You're not going to want to miss any coverage. All exclusively free. Kansas City Chiefs on SI is the best place to get your Kansas City Chiefs news. As always, ladies and gentlemen, I will see you tomorrow. And remember, be kind to one another, as always.